Hello, good evening. Welcome to Alliance on the Move. We're coming to you through the courtesy of DTV Channel 8. I'm Beverly Alert, and with me this evening on this program, I have Chairman of the Alliance for Change, David Patterson, and our very own expert and advisor on oil and gas and matters relating to the environment, Dr. Vincent Adams. It is such a pleasure to actually come here and have a chat with you guys, coming to you live. For the past few weeks, we have been rebroadcasting our press conferences. And as interesting as that may be, I know you want to hear from us directly. So, David, Dr. Vince, thank you for joining me. This evening we're going to be having a power discussion. We're going to be talking energy, we're going to be talking electricity supply, we're going to be talking economics. David, I want to bring you in right away. We know that recently the government signed another agreement to lease another power producing ship. But before we go into the economics of all of that, I want us to examine the first power producing vessel that we've been having here. Would you guys say that it has satisfied its purpose?
Good night, Beverly. Good night, Vince. How are you? Good night, all of viewers in Region 5, 6, and wherever can see us on online. It's a pleasure to be here. Beverly, when we're going to speak about the power ships and we're going to speak of the electricity supply, I want to give our viewers a bit of context. And then, of course, I'm sure Dr. Adams will throw in his bit. So electricity supply, just to be very, very simple and basic, it's like when it's broken down, it's very rudimentary. You have a generator which produces a certain amount of power, and you sell this on to the consumers. As a country develops, and we have as a country developed since colonial days, every year someone builds a house, every year someone builds a factory, every year someone does something that requires electricity. So what the job is of GPL and the government has been from time in independence is not to do, is to ensure that you have enough electricity, enough generating power to meet the demand. I can recall, I was quite young, but I think maybe some of us recall it that sometimes in the 80s, I think because of, I don't think it was generation, I think it was fuel and those things like that, we had blockouts for ages and those things like that. So as we move forward and every year GPL makes a forecast, so the government makes a forecast, so we anticipate 4 hotels, 10 hospitals, so many new houses to be built, and they will consume this amount of electricity. And it's the government responsibility to ensure, and GPL's in the first instance, and government in the second instance, to ensure that you have enough power to meet all of these plans that you're approving. So I fast forward to 2015 when the coalition got into office, and I was fortunate enough to head the electricity sector at that time. When we got into office, we found that there were enough generators if we needed, for example, 50 megawatts. There were enough generating power there, 50 megawatts in place to the credit of the PP. But what there was not was any reserves. And reserves are that if you need 50, you must have on standby 10 or 15% extra. So, and then what we also found that all the generators were aging, and they've been there for quite some time, Our generating set is the best, well-maintained the last 20 years, but they weren't well-maintained, and they're tripping out and those things like that. And we did the studies, we did the projections, and we realized that, listen to me, that we needed about in 2018, 2019, we needed about 160, 130 megawatts. GPL as they were only had 115. So we bought another 50 in 2019. We bought a 50 megawatt set. In 2018, we put the new plants in Cane Field in Burby. So that's what the viewers are now looking at. That's what powering the viewers are. And we put another generating sets in Onvuak. So the people now looking at us are powered by the generators we bought. The study also showed that you needed about 40 megawatts additional every single year to keep up with the demand. And we were on track. We bought the first 45, 50 megawatts and we installed in 2020 ahead of demand, no blockouts. We reduced blockouts from when we took over was 200, almost 200 incidents of blockouts in 2015. In 2020, we reduced to 34 and dropping all the while. The PVP came in, and from 2020 to 2024, 4 years, they did not introduce a single generating set into the system. They will give you all the excuses that they're waiting on the gas ashore to finish. They're waiting on this amazing project on whatever it is, which is 2 years delayed. But it's irresponsible knowing that you need 40 megawatts every year. That was a study done by the IDB, the World Bank, GPL, and you do nothing. So by 2024, we were 120, 100 megawatts short in the power in the power supply because of their pure incompetence. So caught with their pants down when the blockers became regularly, they did what every corrupt government does in the world: emergency spending. Went to one of their friends. Of course, I wouldn't call his name. I don't want to get a TV station into any issues, but we know it. And he went to Honduras, and he saw 17 containers, and they brought 27 containers, which would, when they pieced together, give them 17 generators, and they brought them from Honduras, third hand. And these were the generators. Honduras had a hurricane about like 10 years ago. Hurricane Ivan, I think it was, that decimated the power sector. So they had to bring in some emergency generators while they got their main sets up. And he found them, and he brought them to Guyana. We paid what, about 30 million US dollars, 6 billion Guyana dollars. We paid for them. And they put them down, I think it's in Colombia, in Region 5, which your viewers would know, and they never worked. Of the 17 that were there, I think only 6 or 7 actually give them the correct power. Caught with their pants down again, they went to Cuba. I hope you notice where the areas where they go. They went to Cuba, and they found a power ship that is there now, right now in Berbice. That is there now. And they brought it, and we're paying that for that power ship, renting it every single month, about 12 million US dollars a year, a month, to rent this power ship. That's all we're doing, renting. We have to supply the gas and those things. And they brought it, much fanfare, you know what I mean? There was Ejel there, Indar there, the president there on this. And this power ship is 20 years old. Huh? From here, it goes to the salvage yard. That's how old it is. You know what I mean? So it's on it, as Guyana said, on its last legs. Brought the power ship, and it turned it on, and they said it will solve our problems. A couple months after, they said, oh my gosh, they have a problem. Birds, you know what I mean? I thought Kiskis and those things. I have Lusaki birds are landing on the line and blocking and giving us power outages. And it never worked. And now, so we're going to cost later. So because they've done nothing, because the country's behind the 8 ball, as they would say, they've now gone to get another bigger power ship, which they said they're going to stick in Demerara. So the context is pure mismanagement, money for the boys, a lot of money. We talk millions of US dollars. I mean, for the boys, pure planning. That's it. Corruption galore, and that's what these power ships are. You know what I mean? Everyone knows, but and if they would like to claim, and they're right, that Guyana is developing so fast, But every hotel that they go and open, big fanfare, I mean, it's 1.5 megawatts of power it takes to power that hotel. Right? So if they open 10 hotels and said everybody loves Guyana, they're building a hotel, they by now they know they need 15. As they cut that ribbon and that turn on the power, you need 50 megawatts. But you bought none. Absolutely none. They have purchased absolutely no new generating sets since 2020. So that's the background. I know Vince has other issues he like before we go into the other areas.
Yes, I really want to bring Dr. Vince in here. Specifically, Dr. Vince, I know you'd want to add to whether or not this first power ship really satisfied the needs of Guyana at the time it was brought in. But I know you're also an environmental expert. Did it make good environmental sense to bring in that power ship?
Well, it's even broader than that because first of all, Beverly, before you bring in a ship, you're supposed to do environmental studies, and we know that they're not, and feasibility studies for these types. We know that they're not up to those type of things. I doubt whether they've done any type of environmental studies. I do not have the data, but I do not see, just from the a cursory look at it, it shouldn't have caused a problem. I don't know what they're discharging, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But just to add to what David said, I don't think anybody in Guyana would dispute the fact that there's nobody who understands electricity generation and supply than David Patterson. I don't think anybody, and he has proven that. Okay. The other thing that people need to understand that they like to compare. Every time Jack Dio gets on his weekly show, whatever you want to call that show, he always compares what they've done in their 4 years to what we've done in our 4 years. I want them to compare what we had done in our 4 years to their 32 years, to their 27 years. People must not forget that for the last 32 years, they were in charge. They have been in charge for 27 of those years.
Yeah.
When David, when David took over, as a matter of fact, we used, and I'm talking from a consumer standpoint, David is the expert in this topic. I remember even before I went again, because I went again in 2019, one of the things that my wife was concerned about, was blackouts and that type of stuff. That used to happen before. And David and his department took care of that, even with the limited resources, Beverly, we didn't have money for all this kind of stuff. But here's another thing that people need to pay attention to. These people do not plan for anything. Minister Barrett himself I think that was the last press conference that he had. You know what Minister Barrett said? That all of this is happening because of the unexpected development. That's what he said. Go back and look at it. I was even shocked that this man is admitting that they do not even project or understand, which is exactly what we see with this power ship. David had a plan in place. Like everything that they did when they got into office is to push good plans aside, and then they don't have any plans. They're just in a spur of the moment, day by day, whatever happens, they're reacting to stuff. That is the kind of management that we're having. And it's not only the power in itself. Look, we're seeing the same exact thing with the 530 Coming to Jesus meeting. It shows the incompetence. It shows that there's no planning whatsoever. Even in the disbursement of something, just as this $100,000 for each citizen. Every day they change it. They're just reacting. The first time they come, it's per household. Then within less than a day, they switched it. They didn't even know how to define a household. They switch it, and then you hear the lies from Jagdio. Well, we got a lot of feedback. How could you have had feedback within less than a day? You're going to come out and change. He said, the president said, oh, you're going to get it, what is it, instantaneously. Jagdio comes out the next and says, no, you're going to get it within 5 months. So they're all over the place. So this year, Beverly, is a manifestation. And then when they got caught with their pants down, there's no electricity, they're blaming it on the boards, they're blaming it on driving times. So that is how. So it's a larger this year is the manifestation. of how they're operating, and that is the problem we've got to deal with. What people must understand, when he talks about comparing, let them compare their our 4 years with the 4 years before that, not after that, because this is a different 4 years with the money that they have. Let them compare the 4 years from 2016 to 20 or 2015 to 2020, and from the next 4 years. Not no, I mean their 4 years before that, which is 2012, I think, to 2016. Let them compare that, or even compare their 23 years before that with our 4 years to see the development. But so that's the problem. That's the problem, Beverly. It's this chronic mismanagement and incompetence that we're dealing
No
with.
doubt.
But you know what's saving us? You see, the problem that Guyana has is that now these guys have got money to waste, and it's not coming out of their pocket. They're wasting the people's money because we are still one of the, you hear we one of the richest, but when you really look at it, we one of the poorest with all of this money. We're the richest when you look at these numbers with GDPs. That does not mean anything
It
to the
tilted the
ordinary
money to the
person. When
ordinary
we
people.
have 50%, and I'm sure many of those can, many of our people can relate to us who are watching the show. 50% of our people are making less than $5 per day. That's what we're dealing with. However, a 1% or a 5%, I don't know what it is. They're feeling they're living big, fat, and happy. When we have 60% of our budget going into infrastructure, 60% or 58%, I rounded off to 60%, $666 billion going into infrastructure. Guess who's getting that money? Is their friends and families. And guess who putting up all the big mansions that you're seeing all over the place? You
It
know,
is insane.
ministers, and I don't know how their salary could afford those type of things, because even I lived in Guyana, and but so that's the issue that we're dealing with here, Beverly. That's what we're dealing with. So people need to judge, and the basic things are electricity, and especially electricity and water and food. None of those. People are suffering with all three of those, and housing. And that's what we need to, they need to answer those rather than trying to distract.
Thank you, Dr. Vince. I would want to go to David and take us through some of the numbers, the cost for, the two ships combined. But
Right.
something just occurred to me. David, Dr. Vince, whatever happened to the Skeldon Cogen plant facility was because of that.
Thank you, Thank you very
Hey,
much, Beverly.
David, just give me one second to introduce that topic with this here. The other problem with them, they blame it on everybody. That was what that 5:30 coming to Jesus meeting was, to blame it on everybody but themselves. They do not even understand that the buck stops at the leadership. So that was a confession of their failure and their incompetence. So to start off, David, because David again is the expert in them things. To start off the Skeldon thing, I don't know if you guys had looked at the press conference where Barrett Jagde was blaming that Skeldon failure on the PNC. He blamed that on the PNC. It was so laughable. But that's their modus operandi. They blame it on everybody else except
Everybody else.
themselves. So sorry about that, David, but I
No,
had
no,
to
no, no,
stick
no.
that in
You're
there.
absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Beverly, when the Barrett Jagdeo touted the Skeldon factory as the savior of the Gaisuko, supposed to save
Yeah,
Gaisuko, right? One of the ways of which they're supposed to make money is supposed to be cogeneration, which is that they would use the gas from
but
the
that, yeah,
from the sugar canes when they're finished, and they would supply 15 to 20 megawatts of power to the grid, and GPL will pay them, and of course that money goes into Gaisuko. Absolute, absolute fallacy. Nothing actually happened. Everybody knows that by 2015, when we got in, it wasn't working. They were burning it. They're using they were buying just to keep it going instead of using gas, because the industry and the skeleton was failing. They were buying wood, and everybody in Skeldon, they were going out. The gas is supposed to be free. It's supposed to be a byproduct. They were buying
Yeah.
wood and using diesel to burn the wood to try and to get the Skeldon up and running. The boilers, I mean, when you heat it, the boilers, you heat up the steam, like, you know what I mean? The boilers had holes in them, you know what I mean? It was a total disaster. Total disaster. But the PP doesn't speak about that. They sit down and they try to distract the people from their mismanagement, you know what I mean? Skeldon was the final nail in Guy Suko's coffin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It brought, and that's directly, there's nobody else responsible other than Barra Jagdeo. I mean, Barra Jagdeo brought in the Chinese who never built anything. Sugar knocked out his own, and of course, we know the sue factor. When the Chinese had, they pay these commissions, they have a middleman and those things. That since then, he was dipping his hand since then, he's using middlemen since then. But not only Barra, since 1992, until 2011, 2006, Donna Ramatar sat on the board, the general of Gaisuko. You know what I mean? Don't be like to talk about Donna Ramatar, the former president. You know what I mean? And he's a quite decent fellow. He doesn't say much now, but the PPP had a person on Gaisuko board, a political representative on Gaisuko board for all the years, 23 years. When they were in office, so they can't blame anybody. GAU was always on the board and represented it, even during our time, because we made space for them for representing. So they can't blame anybody. But let me give our viewers some numbers, and
Yes, please.
and you can quote these numbers, viewers. I must warn you, as they always do, that they're big. They are large, so therefore, so hold on to your seats. So for the 36 megawatt, the one that's currently there in Berbice right now, we signed a 2-year deal with this company. And we are paying this company, this is what is reported by the government and as a thing. We're paying that for that ship. We're paying them 13.5 million Guyana dollars just in rentals a day, which and it's there and worth. So therefore, the end of the first year, the end of the year, we are paying this company 5 billion Guyana dollars just in renting. Like if you rent a house, imagine how many generators we could have bought with this money here. And for the 2 years, this power ship will be anchored in Berbice. We will be paying them rental alone, 10 billion Guyana dollars, 46 million US dollars. And this is just renting it, you know, it's not running it. It just parks up there and you're renting it here. So for the new one that they're bringing in, we are the 75 we just signed, we will be paying 35.3 million Guyana dollars per day, or 12.9 billion Guyana dollars per year. And for the 2 years, it's $25.8 billion. So we're bringing this company that came out of Turkey. For the 2 years, for 2024 to 2026, we will be giving them 167 million US dollars just to rent the equipment. And that's not all. $35 billion. I mean, if people don't think that's daylight robbery, I mean, imagine the amount of generators this country could have owned for 166 million US dollars. We bought in 2019, the coalition, we bought a 50 megawatt plants, and it came up to 51 million Guyana dollars. And we own it and they're running right now. They are renting these two sets for 166 million US dollars. But ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't end there. All these sets are generated. The GPL now has to provide the fuel to run these generators. And I'll just quickly run through. For the 2 years that they'll be running, GPL has to provide them with 247 million US dollars worth of fuel. That's at today's prices today. Then they have to pay another friends and family because, of course, the fuel lands in Georgetown, the port's in Georgetown, so they have a barge that brings it up the Berbice River. And that, for the 2 years, will be another $3 billion to one of their friends. That's to barge it up. So in total, ladies and gentlemen, for this harebrained scheme, for the 2 years that we have these power ships here, the total amount of money that the government will spend to get this power to you is 446.6 million US dollars, 91 billion US dollars. To give the teachers, and put it in perspective, to give the teachers what they wanted when they went on strike was $6 billion. You compare that, they're giving away $91.7 billion to a company out of Turkey and out of Cuba and these things like that. We don't own it. At the end of the day, these people pick up their traps and leave. But they're leaving with 426 million US dollars in their pockets. And that is what we're dealing with purely because Beverly and Vince, poor planning. So I don't know which economist, I don't know where Barrett Jagger studied economics, but that makes absolutely no sense for us. Because, and I finish with this because I know Vince want to jump in on those numbers and these things. Vince, that you know that when the 300 megawatts, and I want you to think it, when the 300 megawatt plant comes on in stream, and it's being supplied by gas from if it ever comes on stream, from the FPSOs. When we did the study, at least, I think 4 or 5 days a year, you have to take the line offline and do cleaning and maintenance and those things like that. So when the gas is not there, this gas to shore project can't power generation. So where will they get? I'm not talking about when these power ships are gone back, the people would they all have it. How will we be able to run the country if we have no standby spinning reserves and those things that are owned? So the idea is, I think that what they're going to do, they're going to keep these power ships here until eternity. I don't know what you think about that, Vince.
Yeah, I hear David. You have the most credible number. Like I said, nobody knows this business more than you do. It's a pity that people are not paying more attention to what you say. You know, every week, of course, Barrett gets up there, and I mean Jack. When I say Barrett gets up there and try to distract, but he never goes after the facts, which are the numbers.
Yes,
he goes personal.
Messengers and he tells lies and he says.
Well, of course, the lying. You get disgusted about calling him a liar anymore because, and I wonder if this guy really studied economics in Russia, because Russia is good at propagandizing. So I would like to see a certificate, because I don't believe he cannot be any kind of economist, not even close. So he's got to study propaganda or something. But you're absolutely correct. And, of course, Beverly asked about the Skeldon essay, but not only the Skeldon essay, this guy is a complete failure. I want him to name one project. And he's been challenged over and over to name one project that he's been successful at in all of the years that he's been leading this country, because he's been a leader de facto even now. All the years, name one transformative. They like to use this word transformative. Name one project. Let's Skeldon. That was his baby. We've got the fiber optics. We've got the gas to shore project. We've got the Amelia Falls. And you guys might even know about more. But let's take the most recent, which is the gas to shore project, which is still related to the energy supply that we're talking about. That again, there was no feasibility study. The only feasibility study that this guy had, he said it was a no-brainer. and he's going to cut it in half. But nobody has seen any study as to how he's going to cut the cost of electricity in half. The price, I don't know how he's going to cut it in half when the cost of this project went from, was it, David, 800 million or something now?
It was 583 million US
It's gone out to what, almost $3 billion.
$3 billion, yes.
So I don't know, this man really, and that's the thing that really annoys me and really angers me, is does this man really believe that all Guyanese are fools? And he gets into this propaganda type of stuff, which he's good at, but people have to be paying attention. I mean, the numbers that David say, I mean, it's telling, and people are going to feel it. This man is lying. He's not going to be cutting electricity in half. We're getting up to the election, and you notice all of these things that they're coming out with the disbursement, cash grants to folks, and then you hear they're trying to come up with this, and they do not even have a cogent plan. You know, when you're going to fool people, at least it ought to be a little bit credible. You know, the president comes out there on his 5:30 coming to Jesus meeting. It's a big showcase. But you know, the one thing I was happy about that meeting is his admission that what we've been talking about in terms of the incompetence of how they're running the government, and it's not about the engineers and the contractors. They're trying to push it over to them, but the people ought to understand it's the people who are responsible for running these things. They're not bringing them up to when it's coming close to election. What happened for the past 4 years? Why didn't he have a similar meeting? I could have excused him if he had the meeting from day one. But people have been bringing these things to their attention. It's not a case. It's come up in Parliament. People have been writing about it. Why didn't he have this show of a meeting? A lot of my friends call it a poppy show. Why didn't he have this poppy show? Early in his term, he wait until, well, guess what? We're coming up on the election, so these are the kinds of things, and people ought to be paying attention to these numbers because that David is talking about, because they're wasting our money and fooling the people to get reelected. This here is a political gimmick with all these ships bringing in energy ships and these type of things. It's a political gimmick. I doubt whether they would have done this and just wasting money had it been in their first year or something. Because remember, we've been suffering without electricity for 4 years, Beverly, since they took office. You remember they promised, David, wasn't it last year? They promised, was it last year? By last year, December, everybody will have electricity. Don't worry about it. Yep. And we're here now. We're still struggling. And for the Minister Barrett, I never forget that at his press conference, he said, "Well, you know, this year is unexpected development. We have all these hotels." And all these places that are using electricity. That's what the government does, you know. You have to plan for those things.
The future, of course, Vince. I mean, it is, Vince. You know, you touched on something which I want your viewers in because people, there are certain people and that think Bar Jagdeo is a sort of even a deity. Right, and he's done this and that. But you made a point, and I challenge you in Berbice, and I challenge you in Region 5 and wherever it is, to name one single project, transformative or not, that Bharat Jagdeo and the PPP has been involved in that has been successful. We could start off a Mila Falls. We paid a man. I give the man, Fipmo Lilal, a contract to build a road, started off with $50 million. By the time we got in the office, it was $45 million. Ladies and gentlemen, you give a man $15 million to build your house, and he didn't finish it, and you already paid him $45 million. And it just simply, and Bardak just goes on like if this never happened, and he going on and talk about AP and you. You have the Skeldon, we talk about Skeldon, factory. Up to this day, Kaisuko is still paying back the loan on the Skeldon factory. Mention the fiber optic, 5.5 million US dollars, ladies and gentlemen. 5.5 to run a fiber optic from Brazil to Georgetown so we could get free internet and cheap internet and those things like that. Paid out, headed by former President Ramatar's son. It was the project, we didn't even have to take though. By the time we got there, the people were using the fiber optics as clotheslines and skipping ropes. Absolutely never, never ever connected up anything, just like that. That went away. Got the one laptop per family, y'all forget that? That project? Yes, I mean, that's another 6 million US dollars they brought and they said how they're doing. Never ever worked. I mean, you have the Marriott. You know, maybe they set out it's going to be a public-private partnership. The Guyanese taxpayers had to put 75 million US dollars of our money to finish the Marriott. So we owned it. They tried to sell it, they can't even sell it. You know what I mean? The Guyanese taxpayers had to bail my Marriott out because it went bankrupt. And they said it's a public-private partnership and we need... And look how they just threw the Marriott out the window, you know what I mean? Like that, you know what I mean? Because when they built it, they said it has to be a flagship hotel to attract investment. Soon they came and they threw it out the window like you know, an unwanted child and gone and embrace other stuff. The Berbice Bridge, one of my favorites. You know what I mean? That bridge that people are crossing every day. If it was not for the coalition under my ministry, you would have to be Berbice. You would have to be paying $8,140 per car to cross it. We put a ban on them saying that it's impossible, you can't do that. You can't do that to our Guyanese people. The same people, you know what I mean, Paul Chung, who's the head of Gaisuko, was the head of the Berbice Bridge at the time. The same man that was in charge of Berbice Bridge, Paul Chung, was CEO of the Berbice Bridge Corporation. He wanted to impose a 8,000 Guyana dollars fee on things. Now they're bringing back the crime to Skeldon. So you know if he couldn't run a bridge, how are you going to run a whole, you know what I mean? Thing is, so they brought back a man named Cesar Ryan who said it's how he was the turnaround expert. Turnaround expert left the Budoops, drop it and run out and go on and get another Kusti job. You know what I mean? The gas to shore project, as Vince was saying, that's another failure. But here are the crooks in the matter, Vince. They're now talking about building. They haven't finished the first one. They're now talking about building the second one.
Yes.
Yeah.
A second gas to shore project. They haven't even fixed the Berbice Bridge, which needs maintenance, and they're thinking of bringing a second Berbice Bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, the IMF, the financial institutions, World Bank, Transparency International, and those places have said, and this is proven, the best way for corrupt people to earn money is through these big infrastructure projects. I mean, so if you build a project like they're doing for the gas to shore, and it's $3 billion US dollars for it. If a man scrapes off $100 million US dollars, I mean, while we're looking at it, it's like a magician trick, you know what I mean? It's like the hand. So while we're looking at see what's going on in the project, there's somebody there that's already gone with 150 million US dollars. I mean, friends and family and those things like that. Generational wealth, you know, I mean, this is money that $100 million is what runs certain countries. Their budget is 200 million US dollars a year, but that's already gone. The World Bank estimates 16 to 20% of money in countries like Guyana are stolen with corruption. That is why, gentlemen, they love these big projects. Because it's hard. I mean, if you only have a little project, a little choo-choo bridge, you know what I mean, only $5 billion. It's hard because the contractor counting every cent you want to make $1. That's why they like these big transformative projects. Vince, Beverly.
Yeah, and in terms of...
Before you go on.
Go ahead, Beverly. Go ahead.
Help me to understand something. We were talking about this GT project, the gas to energy project, and we're talking about these power ships. A agreement to lease this second ship is for another 2 years. That would take us into 2026.
That's
But the
correct.
government is still saying that the GT project is coming on stream in
Next year.
2025.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Why do we need a 2 year lease? What's the rationale? I can't find it.
Vince might know better than me. Vince was
No,
part of
it's
planning,
it's part of, well, David, I don't know. We start talking about planning when in the context of talking about the PPP, right? It's part of the hoax. It's part of the hoax. That's what it's all about. And you remember what I just said, Beverly? They do not, if you're a good liar, you're gonna be thinking, well, okay, if I said this, but these guys lie without even thinking what they're lying, and they're gonna get caught. They're not even smart enough to lie properly. They know you picked up on something there. You're absolutely correct. If they're spending $3 billion, $3 billion to get a plan, so we're spending $3 billion to get a plan. They're saying it's going to be finished in 2025, but still they're going to put a lease on a ship on the for 2026. That's an excellent observation, but it shows again, it's just how they got caught on the distribution of the money when they said it's going to be by household without even knowing what a household is. And when the question was asked, they said, well, okay, now, well, this individual, let me go with the individual. And then when the question was asked, what is a Guyanese? They couldn't even answer whether it's Guyanese abroad or Guyanese. They had to think about it and come back later. But it's all part of this hoax. But in terms of the projects and the way that they're managing it, these guys do not want people who are capable either. So this charade, in front of with the president and stuff like that, you can see they do not want that. They're profiting from having people who do not even understand how to manage projects. Look, we had a guy who stood up there, and the president just laughed it off and let it go. He made a great observation. He had one guy here who was representing two contracts. One guy bid. He had two companies. He said it in front of the president. He bid, and I think it might have even been three. One guy bid on two contracts on the same, bid for two companies on the same contract. How is that?
And the president just laughed it off. How you decide?
And he just laughed it off. He just laughed it off and said, and tell the guy that he's brave. You got to give him credit to be brave, to be standing up and saying that. Just laugh it off. How is that?
Ethical move.
Yeah, but so what the guy is doing, the guy is gaming the system, and David knows this. What he's doing, he's gonna bid us. He's gonna make sure he has a very low bid, so he's gonna get it anyway, and then he's gonna have a higher. So he's got a chance. His probability increases. That So who knows if somebody else doesn't have, not are probably bidding 5 times. Instead of having one bid, you have 5 different companies and put in 5 bids. That is what is going on. So they do not want people to competent people, or else they wouldn't have had what is the name of the contract, Tipui? If
Yes.
they needed capable people, where Tipui, for example, a guy who never did anything, comes in and gets almost $1 billion contract. So that is what we're dealing with here, folks. They're taking your money and they're wasting it because it's not coming out of their pockets. And that's the dilemma that we're in, Beverly. It's let me tell you this here, to be honest, Beverly, in any other real country being or a country that is managed with real managers and real leaders, this here would be criminal. This here would be criminal, and of course you'll be gone. But there's no accountability. These guys, we do not have a real leaders in our country, and it's the people who are suffering because of that. Except for the 1 or 5% of folks who are making all their money off oil, nobody else is gaining anything. As a matter of fact, I got a quote from and which was in relation to that other subject. But this is what Jagdio said, and you guys remember. I can't remember. Beverly was in Parliament at the time, but Jagdio with his war short on, his red battle short. He said, "This is about the contract. They sold us out to foreigners, sold out our patrimony. Our people, listen to this. Our people should be sad every time there's an oil field out there because, listen to this, Beverly, because nothing is coming our way. And we will renegotiate that contract." He said, "Nothing is coming our way." Well, you tell me. He has admitted that nothing is coming our way. He's still admitting nothing is coming our way. But then, which is another topic in terms of renegotiation, he fallen back, and then he's bringing up this hoax about the new PSC and all kinds of stuff. But that is how these guys are operating, Beverly. They don't care a damn about the ordinary person as long as they can get the Sues and those people around to fill their pockets and to share the wealth with them. That's what's going on. As simple as that.
Guys, we have probably like just over 10 minutes more on our program time. And so often, people complain, people report and give us the feedback that, we criticize, we complain. What is our plan? I am Dr. Vince, as you said. David was, as the minister during the term of office of the coalition, did an excellent job.
Yeah.
So, David, what is needed to fix our energy problem? Immediate needs, future needs. What would be your proposal? And I know that when you speak on behalf of the Alliance for Change.
Right.
And he speaks with the record, by the way.
Yes.
Of
yes.
course, very good record.
So Beverly, there are certain things that are that need to be done that haven't been done, and will not be done by people because they're not sexy. And when I say so, when you come to the power sector, it is sexy to talk about generators and those things and gas ashore. The unsexy part is the power line, the transmission and distribution, and that has been. I could have, if anybody say New Amsterdam, the same lantern posts, light posts that were there when your father was going to school are there now with the same wires. And how they get older, the resistivity and those things like that. So as a company, GPL, every megawatt they produce, they lose 30% because of the transmission, distribution, theft, poor administration. So this new power plant that Barrett them is building, it will produce, if it ever finished, Vince, it will produce 30 megawatts, but we will lose 90 megawatts out of it. We'll only be able to use 210 megawatts because it goes in the system. But it's not sexy. It's hard work. They like roads, they like bridges because they're short and small, but they haven't fixed, they haven't done an MMA scheme, expand the MMA scheme. They haven't done things that would benefit the country, value added, because those are hard work. Those are a lot of money, and it takes time, it takes planning, it takes resources. So they're not sexy. You can't get rich lying quickly, pulling wire from Georgetown to Berbice, but you get rich quickly by going to Honduras and buy a container set and put it on a boat and land it here, So for the power sector, we have to work on a transmission and distribution line. We get it. Excavator hits a land post somewhere in Babu John and blocks the whole country gets blocked out. That's unacceptable, right? So that's one of the areas, but they don't speak about that because it's not sexy and they don't want to do that. But they can't make money, or even they're gonna make money. To redo our entire wiring thing would probably take 4 or 5 years, and they can't wait so long. Petty thieves. Right? They can't play the long game. So petty thieves want their money right away. So they're just concentrating. And the same thing with the roads. They're building roads and you end up with a bridge that can't take the weight. The Berbice Bridge is a perfect example. They build it and you can't go with a load more than 22 tons. And 22 tons, so So all the trucks, all the container trucks that coming from Georgetown to supply people in Barbados are coming half filled. I mean, but it's nice and sexy to build a road, but they have no thought in it. So if one of the things that we would definitely do is pay lots more attention to the unsexy part of power, the power sector. Pay much more attention, and if we can, easiest way to reduce the cost to the consumer is to get back that 30%. And if we can reduce that to, and that's a saving, we could reduce that to 10. Immediately we can discount the consumer's bill by 20%. If you understand me, just by not doing anything like that. So if Barrett is claiming that we can reduce it by half, which is impossible, but we're just using it as an example. If he's claiming that they get 15, we will do the work with the exact same thing and we reduce it to 10. Simple like that, just doing the hard work.
Thank you, David. Go ahead, Dr. Vince.
And again, I don't think anybody can argue with David. He comes with a record. And again, to put it into perspective, after 23 years of destruction of the electricity, the infrastructure, I remember, we all know the decades of blackouts we used to have, and nobody would dispute, even the PPP, because I've got PPP folks and friends even up here who would always say the one thing that the PNC did is electricity and roads. That's they say, hey, you cannot hide from that. So David knows the nitty-gritty of where because we only had 4 years in office, but the big disadvantage was, like I said, we did not have the money that they have, that they're wasting now. Could you imagine? And that's why I said, when they talk about comparing 4 years, I want them to, and we need to challenge them every time they talk this nonsense. We need to say, okay, let's compare 2016 to 2020 with 2012 to 2016. That's a fair comparison. And I would even compare 23 years, give them 23 years with all 4 years any day. But the one area that which we see is lacking, completely lacking, is the incompetence. And in turn, we should go ahead, which is what the past administration was doing, is to make sure you hire the best to manage, and to make sure that you develop the capacity to manage. We saw in that charade, the 530 meeting, where the president even had to berate this minister that has a big mouth, and even call him bad blood at jail. He stood up there and talked about complaining to the president that an engineer and a contractor got bad blood between them. Why they can't get this thing done? Even the president said, man, I'm surprised that you standing up here to tell me that it's bad blood. We're running our project with bad blood. So that's what he should be calling a bad blood at jail, because he's running his project by bad blood. But here it is again. We need to have the right people in right places, and that's what and David knows the players better, the managers better than I do. But guess what they did? Everything was going fine when the administration changed. They went and they got rid of the person that was in there before. David, the guy from, I can't remember his name,
Jamaica, Albert
from
Gordon.
Jamaica. They got rid of him, and now I think Nandalal brother is somehow
is in charge of it.
Charge of it. So that is what we're dealing with. It's the same exact thing. And if you look all over, from every single one of the agencies, they said the same thing at the EPA. We see what's happening at the EPA is the same exact thing. And and I'm sure the thing happened. The same thing is happening in all of the other agencies. So that is what we're dealing with, Bev, in terms of what we should be doing. David mentioned those.
Dr. Vince, you touched on something very important dear. A lot of competent people were forced out of service. Yeah. And these political hacks were brought on. They don't know the job. They can't do the job. And they have the same attitude that the president demonstrated.
Yeah.
So many public servants complain that when they go to the ministries for whatever service, the arrogance and the attitude, that they're met with by a bunch of incompetence,
Yep, yep, yep,
by a bunch of incompetence with the wrong attitude. And
yep.
the nation now understands where it is coming from. Guys, in closing, I want us to briefly discuss and let the Guyanese public be aware. They must understand that the money that's spending on these power ship, the money that's spending on these field projects, it isn't coming out of the PPP pockets. It is money that the Guyanese people should claim as their inheritance. It is the money of the Guyanese people, and I don't think a lot of Guyanese people make that relationship. That they can get, instead of $100,000, whenever the government of the day feel like it.
Yes.
What are your thoughts there, David?
No, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. But the PPP are masters of this, right? And I can remember Eddie Murphy years ago. He had a stand-up comedy thing named Delirious or something like that, and he made a joke, and he said that if you have a starving man, and of course he's very lewd and so forth, but the analogy he made it, if you have a starving man and you give him a biscuit and you starve him and he's now a bottle and you give him a biscuit, when he eats that biscuit, he says it's the best biscuit he's ever ate. That's exactly what the PPP are doing to the nation. You know what I mean? They're starving us. They're withholding us. They're beating us down. Vince just quoted the number. So many people living below the poverty line. Cost of living is spiraled out of control. You know what I mean? Your salary don't even make 2 weeks of thing. And then they come with these handouts, and then they come with these things and those things like that. They have not allowed us as a nation to grow. So they quote big numbers about the fastest growing economy, but our households, our individuals, us as part, we haven't grown. We haven't done better. How many of us can afford to go on a vacation without saving up whole year? You know what I mean? How many of us could you know what I mean? And if you are in the fastest growing economy in the world, these are things that you would expect. But the people are really good at starving the people, pulling you down, beating you down, and then giving you, and of course, a handout. And because you are so starved and you're so beaten down, right? In your mind, you say, "Oh gosh, it's the best thing, best biscuit I ever made." The Eddie Murphy analogy, Vince.
Yep, and they don't hide it, David and
They
Beverly.
don't hide it. Yeah, they don't
The
shame.
vice president, he stopped saying it, but you remember I was talking about this several times. 3 straight press conferences going back a few months ago. You know what he said? He said that all the opposition wants to do is to take the money and feed the people. That's what he
Yes.
said.
Yes.
I could not believe it, which means that that's not his party. But here's the other thing that Nandalal said in a recent in that thing that he has. Nandalal said, because now they're selling this free university education, Nandalal said that Borna made a bad decision to bring in free education for all those years that all of us benefited from, probably even including Nandalal. So I want him to look the Babishans in their faces, all of them who got free education, and tell them it was a bad decision. Let them look at all the rest of the country and everybody who benefited from a free education at the University of Guyana or from kindergarten right to university. Let him tell them that it was a bad decision. That's what he was saying. He said it was a bad decision at that time, and now this is the time because this is the only time that they could afford it, which is absolute nonsense. He does not even understand that it was education that builds a country. So
Yes.
he needs, and this
No
needs to be
roads,
hung around his
not,
neck,
nothing at all.
where he said that it was a bad decision to provide free education during Bornum time.
Thank you, Dr. Vincent Adams, advisor to the Alliance for Change on oil and gas and the environment. Thank you, Mr. David Patterson, chairman of the Alliance for Change and our point person also on oil and gas, energy, infrastructure, and of course matters related to the elections. Ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you for being here with us, for joining us to DTV. Thank you for this broadcast. And I want to leave a thought with the viewing public. The $100,000 that you're going to be getting if you are an adult, compare that to the travel tickets so many of our ministers enjoy multiple times per year. Just think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Pleasure here. Vince,
Yeah,
see you later.
yeah,
Thank you very
David,
much.
David, you owe me a few Guinness with that, with all that money that you get them.
Yes,
Thank
viewers, you know, you might as well you heard that I took the government to court for constitutional
Yes.
brief, and I was there, and we were successful. I expect, so we awarded damages, $1.5 million, but I expect them to delay paying Vince. That's what they are, spiteful. We are talking about that. Even though they did wrong, they will delay paying and find out for the reasons. You know what I mean? Imagine two judges, Vincent, had to carry them to court. Frank Holden, retired judges, and Banks Reynolds, Barrington Reynolds.
Yeah.
Had to carry their government to court to get paid. These guys serve with
Yes,
this thing.
could you be, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what they deal with. Anyway, Beverly, yes.
Yes. Anyhow,
Yeah.
guys, DTV viewing public, thanks again.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thanks, Beverly, David, and our listening audience.
Good, Vince.
Take care.
Mm.